let's get our right of reply, bring in NSFAS's administrator, Freeman Nomvalo, joining us now via our video link. So thank you for making time and for your patience. Welcome to the SABC. Let me begin by just asking whether you dispute any of what's being said as a matter of fact.
Look, I really don't want us to approach this subject from a point of view that somebody may be saying something that may be inaccurate. It is less important that there may be a detailed matter that is not absolutely correct. What matters is there is a fact that accommodation providers are feeling the pinch of not being paid, and that's the issue we must address and respond to. I think picking up what's right or wrong with the statements, I think will be insensitive to the issues that we are facing.
Well, that's really what I was getting at. And, you know, I was just trying to get a sense of whether or not NSFAS agrees that some of these accommodation owners haven't been paid as they're claiming for almost a year now.
Yeah. Now, let's address that issue. Now, in the TVET sector, the flow of funds for the payment of accommodation flows through, it's either paid to students. In the past, it was paid through the direct payment partners, and some of the cases here at Coastal, there are amounts that were paid before we stopped paying the direct payment partners around about March, and those funds were never, according to the landlords, were not paid to them. And we're addressing that. The second piece of an issue here that is at hand is for a number of students, the payment is made to the students because the issues of the pilot had not been rolled out to everybody. So not all the landlords were on the NSFAS system to be paid directly by NSFAS. And in some instances, we have identified that students have not paid over that money to the landlords. And then there are some cases that Bongile was referring to yesterday, where the data that is available does not enable immediate payment. It needs to be verified, cross-checked, so that the payments are made to valid claims. So those are the three broad issues that are applicable here. It's obviously difficult to deal with individual cases in a platform like this because there will be differences per case. But my focus is that let's find a way to resolve so that to the extent that we are able to pay the landlords and claim that money back from either the direct payment partners, that is made. And that's what the team is addressing at the moment.
All right. I think most people will understand if there are teething issues, but it's difficult to digest how this could take almost a year to get right. In my mind, there must be a clear database around where students are staying. And in fact, even if the money is paid directly to the students, surely NSFAS should have a general idea of how they're being accommodated. I can imagine a situation where the landlords are coming back to your response to say that even if we were to consider those three scenarios, surely it shouldn't take since March last year to where we are now for them to be resolved.
The issue came to my attention for Coastal in December. So the problem goes back to March, but there is a time when this issue gets elevated to the right structures. It does seem, from what the landlord was saying, that they had interactions with some of the colleagues at NSFAS, not successfully, but the issue came to my attention, especially in December, when the landlords from Coastal raised this issue sharply when we were having a workshop in KZN. a solution was put in place, but it seems that that solution did not deliver to the expectation of the landlords.
Right.
And I've been in contact with them earlier today to make sure that we find a solution that is going to be more palatable.
Sure. I hear that, but that might still be cold comfort, Mr. Nomvalo, to individuals who are having the rest of their lives affected by this. It raises questions about whether or not you've got the right team working with you, because I remember us having a conversation at the start of your tenure. This was among some of the priorities you mentioned, where you mentioned that you don't want a situation where ultimately it is students as well as teaching and learning in some of these institutions that's affected because money simply isn't arriving at the places where it should on time.
Yes, and it complicates it, Ayanda, when the student whose flight is at stake as a result of this do not do the right thing to pay the landlords. We do need to find a mechanism that ensures that we don't put students at a temptation of not passing the money over, so that we are not in this situation. But it does make it much more difficult when you expect that the person who is occupying a facility is not paying for that facility. And we must find an answer. We must find an answer, because we do need to make sure that there is a conducive learning environment in all our institutions.
Yeah. What questions are you asking some of your team members to get to the bottom of this? I mean, there's a Sibongile and a Kolani whose names are being bandied about by some of those who've been affected, and I'm talking about the accommodation owners at this point. Because if you're saying to me that this was only brought to your attention in December, even though you in the same token concede that the problem dates back to March, there's a serious issue about efficiency and responding adequately to some of these issues, especially in a context where these accommodation owners are saying that they've sounded the alarm from the moment that they weren't being paid.
Yeah, so the issue of student accommodation, we've been trying to resolve and close this from around about May last year. We asked landlords to submit claims. We provided a specific email address to do that. A lot of landlords did do that. And I'm not going to suggest that these ones did not, because I don't necessarily have sight of every item that comes through that email. But there are questions here that are worrying in relation to the interface we've had between ourselves and the landlords, which I cannot discuss in this platform at this stage. And that is worrying, but we will address all of that.
What is the commitment now? I imagine some of these accommodation owners are watching our exchange, and hopefully it'll give them confidence if you make a commitment in this very public way. Teaching and learning has been disrupted specifically at that one institution, but we're told it's the region ultimately that may be impacted. And understandably, some of these accommodation owners are now threatening to up the ante if in fact some of these concerns, let's call them, are not addressed. So what's the commitment now from your office to make sure that at the very least the upcoming academic year is not further disrupted by what's taking place there?
Yeah, so we've been working with a task team. So let me first address the issue of the landlords having been to go to Cape Town. I really think that we ought to meet the landlords where they are. We shouldn't subject them to an additional cost of having to go to Cape Town. So we're going to be in touch with the landlords in relation to how do we come together, because not every claim that is submitted is a claim that NSFAS must meet. So we need to sit down with the landlords and make sure that that process is done. We did do it with most of them in December, and those ones will be paid within this week. But there may be, and I don't want to generalize it, there may be one or two where there's no such claim that is already with us. And we do need to have access to every claim that is there. Make sure the claim is a valid claim against the student which by extension would be a claim against NSFAS. And then we respond to dealing with that. And we will be sending a team down to KZN. We will work out the timeline. We will also involve the student leadership because of the nature of the problems that we are facing. And we will then come around the table, bring the data that we have as NSFAS, and the landlords will bring their data, and then to identify what is it that is payable, and we pay that.
All right. I appreciate that you say you can't commit to timelines, but I'm sure you can also understand, Mr. Nomvalo, that that is actually at the heart of the issue. How speedily this can be resolved. So when our office...
No, what I'm saying, Ayanda, is that within this week, we're going to reach out to the landlords. But then the time to resolve the issue depends on the nature and the complexity of what you're dealing with. But we can't delay this any further. We've got to reach out to the landlords immediately.
All right, and we'll be reaching out to them and to you to see the extent to which that's been resolved. For now, Freeman Nomvalo, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. That is, of course, the NSFAS administrator, as we get to the bottom, of course, of the issues around unpaid fees, it seems, for some of those landlords in around uMbumbulu, who say they haven't been paid literally for months now. So we'll get a sense of the extent to which that is finally being resolved.